Hey friends, welcome to episode 527 of the My 123 Cents podcast. It is the Christmas episode. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see that clearly by the clothing that both me and my co-host Chad Smart are wearing this week. Chad, you're sporting a seasons beating shirt. You got that from Pro
Yeah,
Wrestling Crate, is that right?
Pro Wrestling Crate. Yeah, not a sponsor, but I figured it was appropriate for this episode um, because, well, it's Christmas, and I have a feeling the beating that we're about to put down on this movie is
Oh,
maybe a
so
spoiler.
that might be a spoiler alert here. Okay, all right. Well, before we get into the main topic here, which is going to be talking about the Red One, um, the new Christmas movie featuring Dwayne The Rock Johnson and a cast of others. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit about Christmas movies in general. I think we have very different taste in Christmas movies, as in a lot of things in the world today. So tell me a little bit about because I had posted that I was watching National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
uh,
I have watched it every year for the last 35 years. It is my favorite Christmas movie. Spoiler alert, Red One did not knock it off of that throne, but you said overrated when I sent that snap. So tell me your thoughts on Christmas movies.
yeah, I actually was having this conversation the other day, and I said I don't have necessarily a go-to Christmas movie.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, even though Die Hard is obviously the best Christmas movie, I don't watch that every year, but I do think that my hot take, as is popular in the world of wrestling YouTube videos these days, my hot take is that A Christmas Story was ruined by TBS when they
Okay.
started doing the 24 hours. Can't watch that. I think Elf and Christmas Vacation are highly overrated.
Okay.
And Home Alone is fine, but not something that I need to watch on a yearly basis. So I'm trying to think of what Christmas. I mean, we did watch Gremlins more in the Halloween season than, although it is a Christmas movie.
But here's
Uh,
the thing about Gremlins that
yeah,
I find funny, and I don't disagree that it's because it happens over Christmas, but
yeah,
I didn't realize it until I went back and kind of did a little bit of digging. I guess I did realize it because it was the summer of '84 that that movie came out. So it was a
yeah.
summer release, but a Christmas film.
As was Die Hard.
Was Die
So
Hard a summer
yeah,
release? I see. I don't remember. I know I
yeah.
went and saw Die Hard 2 at the movie theater, but I don't remember if I saw Die Hard in theaters or if I saw it
Mm.
on video later.
Yeah, and I mean, the little trivia factoid too is that Gremlins and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom came out at the same time, and they are the reason for the PG-13 rating that we have today,
Hmm.
because both movies were rated PG and scared the heck out of children. So I don't know why guys getting their hearts ripped out of their chest and little creatures killing people would scare kids, but um, I understand it in today's society, but in the '80s, kids were tougher. You
Gen
know,
X, we were tough.
we had to
Exactly.
be. But anyway, yeah. So Christmas movies. I was trying to think. I don't. Um, yeah, I haven't watched Bad Santa in several years. Although I enjoyed it when I saw it in the theater.
A young
And
Harley Race in that one. So,
yes, I mean,
have you seen Bad Santa 2? I didn't realize that
uh,
that existed until the other day.
yeah. Unfortunately, I have,
Okay.
and there's no reason for Bad Santa 2 to exist
Yeah.
other than the fact that Bad Santa made money, kind of like Home Alone 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Well, and then I have not watched it, but I know they did a second version of Christmas Vacation as well as
Yeah.
A Christmas Story. So, yeah, I think sometimes we
Mm.
we dig too deep into that nostalgia and try to recreate it for a new generation, and it just
Mm.
doesn't. And again, I'm not criticizing either of those films because I haven't
Mm.
seen them, but the track record and the history of those types of things, it's like
Yeah.
as they said back in the day, leave the memories alone because I don't need uh, an updated, especially Christmas
Mm.
Vacation. I think they used two different actors. I think they used the original uh,
Dana, right?
Rusty, which was
Mm.
Michael Anthony Hall or Anthony Michael Hall, and then the girl that played Audrey in I guess she was in the original Audrey too. So anyway,
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was the original Audrey. I didn't realize Anthony Michael Hall had come back. But is that the one where it's like Cousin Eddie's Christmas Vacation? Or
I think it is. I
okay,
think it is. And I could be wrong. Maybe it wasn't Anthony. I'm trying to yeah, I think it was him in it.
uh,
But anyway, um, and then I know they tried to remake it too with what's the guy that was on The Office? Ed Smith? No,
Ed Helms.
Ed Helms. Thank you. And Christina Applegate, I think.
Yeah they did a
That was
remake
the
of Vacation.
vacation movie though, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
anyway,
I think, and this is going to go down a whole nother road than what we were planning on, but yes, I think when it comes to movies in general, again, if a movie is successful, there's a producer. Actually, she was the head of Sony at the time, Amy Pascal.
hmm
If you remember when Sony got hacked and all their emails got leaked, she was a
yeah.
big. I don't know if that led to her stepping down as head of Sony or because of some of the things that she had said in them.
Mm,
But anyway, she was head of Sony when Godzilla, the Matthew Broderick version, came out.
okay.
And I don't know if you've seen the version.
No.
It's terrible. But she made the comment, of course there's going to be a sequel. When a movie makes $300 million, you do a sequel.
Mm,
And that, I think that's Hollywood's mentality
yeah.
is, if especially if a low budget film is a success, then you go ahead and you make the sequel, which in the terms of comedies, it always seems like all they do is repeat the same jokes. And there's
Mhm.
really nothing new to add. It's just like, hey, remember how you like this joke? Here it is again.
Yeah.
Still funny, right?
Yeah.
Ha ha
Say
ha.
the line,
Deadpool.
Bart. Say the
Yeah.
line, Bart. Yeah.
I say Deadpool 2. And then I think, now, as you mentioned with the Christmas story, there is that nostalgia factor. We're like, oh, remember this? You really like this one? Well, let's see what these people are doing, 20, 30 years later. And
Right.
I didn't even make it all the way through A Christmas Story 2.
Mm.
It just wasn't that. And again, I think because A Christmas Story has been ruined for me by the nonstop airing of it. So the other one I was going to mention is 8-Bit Christmas. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I have not.
It came out a couple of years ago. It was good. It was, again, I don't know if it's something that I would need to watch yearly, but for a Christmas movie, it's one that I would recommend.
Cool. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah,
I'm surprised you didn't try to wedge the apple in there somewhere as a Christmas film. They were
I would
wearing
like.
red in a scene or something. So
Well, the apple is red, and I would, if I could, I would, but it's more of an Arbor Day film.
okay, there you go. Arbor Day it is. We'll agree on that one. We have talked about for Movie Mania before
Hmm.
Christmas related films that feature wrestlers, pro wrestlers. The two most notable, and I think the only two that we've done here on the podcast, and correct me if I'm wrong through this conversation, but it was Santa's Sleigh with Bill
Hmm.
Goldberg, and of course Santa with Muscles with Hulk Hogan.
Yeah,
Now
it's
I
funny.
know,
Real quick, I just had a Facebook memory pop up last week.
mm-hmm.
It was from like, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. It was like watching Santa with Muscles. Pretty sure they show this to prisoners like Abu Ghraib.
Yeah,
So
you can go back in the archives and listen to those shows if you're so inclined, but we'll save you the time of watching the films. I don't think either
mhm.
one of them was any good, and that's and I don't want to be overly critical of Hulk Hogan and Terry Bollea as an actor, but I think we've talked about this before. We've seen this crop of superstars who have gone from the ring to Hollywood: John Cena, The Rock, Batista, to an extent Kevin Nash, and they all seem to have much better success, much better roles. Maybe they're not being stereotyped or typecasted so much in that wrestler role, but I think Hulk Hogan also had a look back then that it would have been hard to take him any different than a big dumb jock, for lack of a better word. Do you know what I'm saying? Like Hulk
No,
Hogan's look wasn't a Dave Batista or a John Cena where they could kind of fit in as an everyman. And I don't think
mhm.
Hulk Hogan's look was conducive to something like that.
Yeah, especially since I don't think, Hogan would have been keen to shave off the mustache,
Mm-hmm.
except for when he did in the Dungeon of Doom angle, because
Yeah.
that was his look. And
Yeah.
that's, you don't mess with that. And I think, especially with Batista, I think one of his attributes to being a successful actor is he can change he'll grow his hair, he'll grow a beard, which
Mhm.
seems very simple, but if you've
Right.
seen him lately, I know he
Yeah.
also lost a lot of weight, a
Yeah.
lot of muscle, but and Cena, Cena is, I think, just has a personality that he could, even though when he comes on the screen, oh, that's John Cena, but
Mm.
there's just something about him that, yes, he can play and again, I don't think he doesn't have a problem with poking fun of himself or, not taking himself so seriously.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the problems with The Rock's career. And we'll get more into it as we get into the discussion of Red One. But I think The Rock has personality to spare, obviously, but that personality also hinders the role that he's going to play. And I think he took more chances early on in his career, but now that he's become a huge, the biggest
Hmm.
star in Hollywood, like he's just going back to the well of the standard character. And I also think, when Hogan came out, it was a different time. You had a lot more direct to video
Hmm.
film. I mean, obviously now we have a lot of direct to streaming films that no one knows about,
Yeah.
but if you're going to hire a known actor per se, um, I think the direct to streaming now goes with, back in the 80s, Harrison Ford, Sean Connery, they weren't doing direct to video films.
Right.
Like actors will do the direct to streaming now.
Yeah.
So I think the movies that Hogan was being offered, one, were playing up on his popularity as a wrestler, and yeah, he doesn't really have a range to
Hmm.
say. So, and I think he also had to be, I know Mr. Nanny probably was a chance to do something a little different,
Hmm.
but it's been 30 years since I saw the movie, so I don't really remember it all that well, but I'm pretty sure he's still beating people up and
Hmm.
being Hulk Hogan just in a tutu.
Right.
uh, yeah.
Well, and I think, and as you were talking, it jogged my memory too. I think The Miz has been in a couple of, I don't know if they were Hallmark movies, but a couple of Christmas
I think they're
related films.
WWE.
Were they through WWE?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, isn't the Big Show in Jingle All the Way, or
Yes.
Paul White?
he's
And
he's
I,
he's in a scene. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, it was something quick. So I haven't seen that all the way through. So
Mm.
I thought he was in that. And I think that might have been when he was still in WCW. So if you can think of other wrestling related films, or I'm sorry, Christmas films with wrestlers in it, let us know. We'll maybe do a review next year at Christmas time. But Red One kind of came out and was available. And it's funny because I had messaged Chad and said, "Hey, are you planning to see Red One? I want to do a movie Mania on it." And he said, "If it's not streaming, no." And then I think 3 days later, he sent me a text that it was coming out on Prime Video, which how often does this happen where a movie is still playing at the theater but also streaming on a streaming service?
It's happening more and more. And it depends. I mean, it depends on the movie. um, if a movie isn't doing well at the box office, I think they try to get it streaming quicker so that while it's still in people's consciousness, even though if they're not going out to pay for it, maybe they'll watch it at home. I think with Red One, I would say the plan was always to release it around Thanksgiving to get the
Hmm.
theater crowd, and then release it in time for Christmas so that people at home could watch it.
Well, I am gonna read this, and this was posted last week or maybe earlier in the week. Anyway, this is from Deadline. Red One pulls in record 50 million global viewers in debut Prime Video weekend, the most ever for an Amazon MGM studio movie. Um, so obviously people were watching it on the streaming service. I have no idea what it did at the box office. I should have looked that up too. But this one says
It
Red
did.
One. Oh, go ahead.
I'd say it did well, but not for the amount of money that it cost.
Gotcha. Red One earned an A minus cinema score and a 90% audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes. The film produced by Johnson's $7 and directed by Jake Kasdan dropped on Prime Video on Thursday, December 12th, after a 28-day theatrical window. So obviously getting some success. At least people are watching it. And again, I don't know how the streaming stuff works as far as capturing viewers, because like you said, there may be a family of six watching, there may be one
Mm.
person watching, there may be you know, a bunch of people watching. I don't know how it captured it, and I don't know if it records the entire, you know, like you said, you didn't get through Christmas Story 2. Well, if
Mm.
100 million people
Mm.
watched 60 minutes of a 120-minute film, then that doesn't bode well for it. So I don't know how all the numbers and stuff work. So I guess take it
Yeah.
with a grain of salt that it had, or it has celebrated some success in terms of those kinds of numbers. So do you
Yeah.
have any insight on that or not?
I don't. And, this has been one of my big questions with the streaming platforms, namely Netflix, and I guess Amazon Prime is probably the most similar to Netflix, is that, if 50 million people watch it, but those 50 million people already had a subscription to the platform. So
Mm-hmm.
you're not bringing in any extra money by the 50, whether 5 million watch it or 50 million watch it. If everyone who watched it already had the subscription, you're not making any money off of it.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you, other than with sponsorships and product placement, how are these streamers making money? Which,
Right.
again, in Hollywood, is the big thing is that they're not, which is,
Yeah.
um, so when a movie like Red One that cost $250 million, how do you recoup that on a streamer?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
It's an interesting time for sure.
Mhm.
And the wave of the future, obviously, not just for movies and TV shows, but wrestling itself. You know, we've learned obviously January 6th will be the Netflix debut of Monday Night Raw after 32 years, right? Yeah, 32
Mhm.
years of being on cable television. You know, I still remember that debut episode in January of 1993. Um, AEW has announced that it's going to be streaming. Is it going to be all of its shows or just Dynamite
No,
on
it's
Max?
Dynamite and Collision. I believe Rampage is being canceled.
Oh.
And then it will be, when they launch, it will be everything from 2019 when they launched, I believe, plus the last like 2 or 3 months of 2024, and then the rest will roll out through the year. And then eventually the pay-per-views will also be available to order through Max at a, they say, discounted rate, but they haven't announced a price yet. So I am looking forward to that happening so that I can cancel my streaming television service and save $60 a month. But, and hopefully, do you have Max?
I don't.
Well, you need to get it so that you can start watching AEW
You know,
and all the great home improvement shows and Food Network shows. I know you're a
I
big
think
Guy
they have
Fieri
a
fan.
I think they have a bundle now of Disney, Max,
Hulu and
and
yeah.
Hulu. So we might do that and consolidate. But you were spending $60 a month just to watch AEW.
I mean,
Mark,
I mean,
Mark, excuse me. God.
if you break it down, yeah, that's what I mainly watch. I mean, the Big Bang Theory reruns on TBS from that air for like 6 hours a day, get a lot of repeat viewing. And during football season, it does give me CBS or Fox and NBC channels to watch football. But I, any network primetime viewing, I watch on Hulu the next day, so I don't have commercials. And but yeah, so basically, yes, I still had cable, quote unquote,
Mhm.
because of AEW. I wanted to watch AEW, and I don't mess with VPNs and figure out how to get like the European cheaper
Mm.
version on Triller. So
Well, it is going to be a different time here for pro wrestling for fans. How we consume the product, it's been evolving for several years now, but I think 2025 is going to be a big year in terms of how we're watching, what we're watching, when we're watching, and let me ask you one more thing about that before we get into the Red One discussion, and that's regarding AI. And I've heard it said and mentioned before that, we miss the days of Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon and Mean Gene Okerlund. And eventually, someday, I think people will say that about Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone. And Excalibur and those around. Do you think there will come a time where companies will produce maybe specials, kind of like Saturday Night's Main Event last week? We talked about the nostalgia around that, where they will use AI generated voices from wrestling's past to tell those stories in the ring, or is that because I think we saw it in some forms with the holograms, the holographic stuff
Mm.
several years ago now. I don't even remember who it was, but someone who had passed away, a performer.
Tupac.
Was it Tupac?
Mm-hmm. They've done Tupac, and I think they've done Ronnie James Dio.
So will that become a thing? Should that become a thing? Because we just talked about kind of reliving that nostalgia through sequels of movies, but this is a whole different ballgame where they're taking the voices of these deceased announcers and able to put them together. I've seen some amateur stuff with it already, and the voices sound pretty spot on for just amateur stuff going on. I can only imagine once they put some money and some real technology behind this, it could be a totally different ball game even down the road here.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. I don't know if do you remember when I think it was Gene Kelly or Fred Astaire, they put them in a commercial for a vacuum.
Yes, I do
And
remember
they're, people were all upset about that because it was using
Yeah.
dead actors. And I think this year during the Olympics, there was a story about, I think Al Michaels had signed an agreement with NBC to be able to use AI version of his voice for Olympic packages in the future. So I think in that regard, I don't know if it will happen, but I would say if it does, I don't personally, I wouldn't want to see it for a current, package wrap up or announcing. But if you did a retrospect on, how WWE does their documentaries about wrestlers. So if they did say a Cowboy Bob Orton retrospect, then I think it would be interesting to use Mean Gene, Gorilla, Jesse to be a voice from that time to give it a little bit of, and this is going to be not a weird word to use, but authenticity to the package instead of having Michael Cole talk about or Pat McAfee talk about Bob Orton, if that makes sense. So I could see it being that, but I don't know where AI would come in otherwise.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you're going to get rid of commentators altogether and have a computer calling a match.
Right.
And if it's a John Cena match, you don't need one because he'll call it for you in the ring by himself. So,
yeah, it's just an interesting. It's I've just for work purposes been doing research on AI and the way I mean it's already here, but it's going to become even more of a factor in our everyday lives, I think, in the next few years as well. So it's something to keep an eye on, and we'll watch it and see as well. And maybe one day there's an AI My 123 Cents a podcast, and we won't have to get together and record anymore. We can just generate our old sound bites together and come up with new content. So, well, let's talk about Red One. I guess we both watched it. We both streamed it. I guess for a quick little synopsis on my end, and I'm not reading anything, so if you've got it pulled up, I please add to this. But to me, it's kind of like The Rock is playing a bodyguard for Santa, for lack of a better word, kind of head of security. And without giving too many spoilers away, Santa Claus, who is played by J.K. Simmons, is kidnapped, and The Rock and his team go on a mission to basically save Santa and then hence save Christmas. So, and then there's some other little players that come into the action as well. But I probably didn't give that any justice, Chad. So what is your take on kind of the plot line for this?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Santa gets captured. Chris Evans plays a guy who can find anybody and uses the dark web to sell goods and to unscrupulous people. And then after Santa's kidnapped, Santa's security team finds out that Chris Evans is the one who gave the information on how to find Santa. So they capture him to help them track down the people that tracked down and stole Santa. And then they have to do it before, because there are only 24 hours until Christmas Day. And The Rock's, bodyguard character, he's been doing it for over 300 years. He's retiring. He's got 24 hours left on his job. And
He's too old for this shit.
Exactly. So he's got to find Santa so that he can retire peacefully.
One of the things that I did like about this film, and I'll put it out there right now. Overall, I liked it. It was a good enough film for me. And again, I do like The Rock. I like Dwayne Johnson. Some of the movies that he's in. I'm not a big action movie guy, but especially with Christmas movies. But this one was fine. I liked the integration of like some of the CGI or the AI characters, the giant talking polar bear, the penguins that were working in the office, some of the introduction of different Christmas characters. Krampus makes an appearance in this, which was fun. I thought that kind of stuff, it was almost kind of reminded me of either like Guardians of the Galaxy or like a Star Wars, where you've got these non-human characters that really, they were able to, you would almost think that was a real polar bear standing there, talking and fighting and doing all this stuff. So the technology obviously in Hollywood has come light years from back in the day when we were younger and watching films like that, Clash of the Titans comes to mind of how kind of cheesy that AI, or that, I guess it wasn't AI at the time.
Don't be dissing Ray Harryhausen. It's a legend.
Just the look, though, obviously has come, 40 years. Obviously, things have improved. So, give me some of your takeaways from this. Because I think you did not like it.
It's not, I wouldn't say so much that I didn't like it. I just found it, I found it very dull. I didn't like the action. And just before we started recording, I don't know if you're familiar with the YouTube series pitch meeting. They did one for Red One about a month ago. I would recommend going back and watching that, because that will give you in 5 minutes what I'm probably going to take about 10 to 15 to say. And my big question watching it was, who was the movie made for? Because I was going in expecting like this kind of action Christmas movie, kind of you said Guardians of the Galaxy, Star Wars type, just overreaching genre film. And I know part of this is me being getting more prudish as I get older, but I didn't find it to be a family film with the amount of swearing that is in it. I didn't find it to be an adult film because it is kind of not kiddie, but kind of childish in some of its material. And I don't think it was like a teenage action film. I don't know who the movie was made for. It seemed to be all over the place kind of in its thing. I do think some of the special effects were special. And I like J.K. Simmons. I think he needed a bigger role, but I think Dwayne Johnson played Dwayne Johnson. And as we discussed earlier in the film, I don't think I'm sure he's happy, because I don't know if this is the movie that he got paid $50 million to do during the strike, when actors were, asking for more money, and they're like, well, talk to Dwayne, tell him to, share some of that 50 million that he's getting. But yeah, I just, when it was over with, I was like, okay, that's a movie. And it hits every beat that you could expect it to hit. In the pitch meeting, they did talk about, if The Rock's not going to be in the jungle for the movie, you got to at least put him somewhere where he's next to a palm tree to make him happy. So yeah, like you mentioned Krampus, I thought that was an interesting tie into the mythology of Christmas, but the overreaching story, the plot is that this witch is upset that people aren't being nice to each other. And that's what's whole Santa's whole purpose is. He's supposed to be bringing people together, make them nice, because you have the nice list. And so the witch is going to capture all the bad people. But then once they're captured, if they just admit that they're bad and start being good, then they're free. So yeah. Anyway, that's a long rambling way to say the movie was, I mean, technically it's fine, but I at 2 hours, I think you easily could have trimmed 20 to 25 minutes of this movie out because there's a lot that's not going on.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because okay, so I'll give a quick backstory. My original plan was when you said you weren't going to go to the theater to see it, I was going to drag my wife to go see it. And I literally was looking up the tickets. AMC here in Southern Illinois, I think AMC everywhere, but on Tuesdays, it's cheaper movie night. So Tuesday afternoon, I was looking it up to get tickets to go Tuesday night to see this, and I hadn't sprung it on my wife yet, but that was going to be, and then I was going to have her on here to review it. So this would have been a very interesting podcast with that. But you had texted me that day, like right as I was looking up. I think I might have even said I was looking up tickets. I don't know if I did or not, but anyway, you said it starts streaming on Thursday. Well, I'm like, well, shit, I'll just save my $10 or whatever it was going to cost and just watch it from home, and then you can watch it and we can do a podcast together. But and she was relieved when I told her that she was off the hook for it. So she ended up she was baking cookies and kind of watching peripherally, but not focused on it. And I don't know that she was overly impressed with it, obviously, either. But when I first popped it up because it was a little after 7 my time when I popped it up on Prime, and I saw 1, 2, 3 as the runtime, which I thought was ironic for my 1, 2, 3 cents. But in my head, that was 1 hour and 20 minutes. And then as that time was getting close to, I'm like, this doesn't feel like it's wrapping up anytime soon. So I Googled it. I said, how long is Red One? And it was 2 hours and 3 minutes, which is 123 minutes. So it was, so don't be deceived by the runtime. It is 2 hours and 3 minutes. And like you said, we grew up in the 80s. You'd go to the movie theater, you'd watch the cartoon at the beginning and watch the movie itself, and you were out in 2 hours or less. So yeah, 2 hours and 3 minutes was too long for this movie.
Especially if you would have gone to an AMC and where they tack on 20 to 30 minutes of previews.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the other convenience of watching it from home, because
baby bladder.
You can pause it and go to the bathroom or do whatever. So and I did, it's inevitable with my kids, and they're adults now, but one has just moved out, the other one still lives here, but there will be days that we don't see them. They're in and out, they're going to work, they're doing their own thing. We don't micromanage or, make them check in and that kind of thing. I'll be damned anytime I want to sit down and actually watch something, because half the time we're on our phones or, watching, TV's on just to have some noise in the background. But the night that I'm sitting here trying to watch this, my daughter walks in with her friend and they're telling us stories. Pause. She goes away. Son comes down. He starts telling. I'm like, and I looked at and we both were laughing because we both, it's inevitable. Anytime we want to watch something, they show up and decide that this is the time we want to have a conversation, not the 90% of the time when there's, nothing on or nothing to do. So anyway, that's my little rant, but I did watch it and I liked it, but did I like it enough to make this a Christmas tradition every year watching? No. Was it better than Santa with Muscles and Santa's Sleigh? Yes. I'm curious, where do you put it amongst the 3 Christmas movies that we've watched with pro wrestlers in it?
I would probably say better than Santa with Muscles. I'm trying to remember Santa Sleigh. I think I didn't like Santa Sleigh, but I could watch Santa Sleigh again.
I would have to rewatch Santa Sleigh again too, because I think I would put that above Santa with Muscles, but I don't remember much of it. And then I every time I think of Santa Sleigh, I think of that, and I don't remember what it was, but it was the one with Piper and I think Hacksaw Duggan's in it, with the zombies that we watched.
Zombie, yeah.
I think that was last year at Halloween we watched that one, but
Maybe.
uh you know,
Yeah.
again, we often talk about too who if the wrestler wasn't in that role, what actor would be in that role. And I think with you, like you said, with Dwayne Johnson's film roles, I mean, he is that kind of typecasted,
Yeah.
tough guy who talks slick. And I actually watched on my plane ride to Las Vegas, or on my way back from Vegas when I went on that conference. I
Mhm.
can't even think of the name of the movie, but it's him and Kevin Hart. Um, is it artificial intelligence or
Central Intelligence.
yeah, central intelligence? I watched that. I thought it was fine.
Mm.
I liked it, uh, but again, you see these connections of the the roles that Dwayne plays versus a Dave Batista or a John Cena, which I think either one of those guys would have fit nicely in that role as well, playing. Uh, I can't even remember his character's name in the movie, but
Cal
yeah,
Drift, Cal
Cal
Drift,
something, yeah.
Callum Drift, something like that.
So,
Yeah.
uh, but I think any, Chris Pratt or uh, uh, what's the other who played Thor?
Chris Hemsworth.
Hemsworth. I any of those guys. It's that kind.
Well,
And again, it's that stereotypical mindset.
yeah. Well, what did you think of Chris Evans in the movie?
I thought he was fine, and I know there's what's the tie with him. I know there's something there. I'm not up on my
We were just
Marvel.
talking about Chris's,
Oh,
Chris Pratt, Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans. But and I
well,
mean,
what else was Chris Evans in? He was in something else not too long ago, wasn't he?
he is Captain America in
Okay,
the
I was going to
Avengers
say I thought he
movies.
was a Marvel. I'm not, and
Yeah.
again, I'm not into that genre of films. And I'll say this too: if Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, was not in this movie, I wouldn't have watched it.
Watched it.
I
Yeah.
watched it for the wrestling tie-in. So that from that realm too, if it was John Cena, if it was Batista, Kevin Nash, our usual laundry list of
Mhm.
WWE former superstars that have turned to acting. I wouldn't have watched this if it was Chris Hemsworth as Cal, the bodyguard elf, if you will.
Yeah. Well, what if it was Chris Hemsworth playing Hulk Hogan, like he was supposed to do?
I would watch that. I would watch that. I am curious if that
um,
ever gets off the ground.
yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't, I mean, I probably would have watched this at some point because anything that streams, I will give a chance to, especially if it is released in the theaters and makes money and ends up on my year-end list of top 100 films at the box office, then I feel obligated to
Mhm.
keep watching. Um, but, but yeah, I don't. Again, I don't think I need to see this movie again. When they make Red 2 in 2 years, I don't feel a need to have to watch that either. But
What if Ava
uh,
Rain is in
you
that one?
know, we talk about David Flair and how he and David Sammartino and
Yeah.
Greg Gagne. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Well,
you can see where I'm going with that.
yeah, we'll leave it at that for now. But um, any other thoughts on Red One before we put a bow on this week's episode?
No, again, stop making 2 hour movies. Hollywood, just you don't. I I would rather see a tight 90-minute film that I enjoy than a 2 hour bloated film that, I mean, sure, you're trying to maybe give me my money's worth in the time, but if you're just padding time, then you're taking time away from me to fill up. Yeah.
That's a
No, but I
good
will.
point. That's a good point. With feeling like because I think we could say the same thing about
Mm,
wrestling.
mm,
Especially in those mid 2000 years of WrestleMania where it was 6, 7, 8 hour shows. AEW I think has gained a
mm.
reputation of
At the 5 hour
putting
pay
out
per
a
view. Yeah.
lot of stuff. I liked the conciseness of Survivor Series and Saturday Night's Main Event. That 2 hour sweet spot for wrestling. But
Mm,
SmackDown allegedly I've read is going to be going to 3 hours, and that's obviously a USA mandate. I don't think WWE or Tony Khan goes and tries to get that extra hour added. I think it adds a lot, even though it's just an hour. But it creates that viewer fatigue, I think, in a lot of cases. And same thing
Yeah.
with movies. 90 minutes,
Yeah.
maybe an hour 40. Anything over that, though, I'm not
No.
interested in sitting there watching.
Yeah. And, I think as we've gotten older too, where we have more stuff that we're going, as a kid, my parents would go drop me off at the movie theater and then I was fine
Right.
because I didn't have many responsibilities or other things that I wanted to do. But now, especially as we talk about with AMC, putting so many trailers before a film, and
Hmm.
you factor in the time that takes to drive to the theater to get there. If you get there to watch the trailers, I mean, I know some people be like, "Well, just show up later," and it's like, well, then you're not getting the full theatrical experience.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it can be a 3 hour, a 3 or more hour excursion to go to the
Hmm.
theater. And that's, if you're talking half a workday almost to go see a movie, it has to be good. And that's, I think I mentioned it when you asked if I was going to see it in the theater. I'm like, no, the last movie I saw in the theater technically was Bad Boys over the summer, but that was because I was back home. It was cheaper and I
Hmm.
wasn't doing anything. But the last movie here in LA that I went and saw was The Iron Claw.
Hmm.
Um, which I'm trying to get my girlfriend to make a Christmas tradition because it was such a fun, uplifting Christmas movie last year to go see.
Yes.
Uh, um, but that's the thing is like, uh, it's 20. You mentioned $5 Tuesday here. I don't know what AMC costs on a Tuesday, but a regular movie is $20.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you the last movie that I felt was worth $20 to go see, and so I'm not, especially a movie that I know is probably not going to be that great. I'm not going to spend $20 and 3 hours to go see.
Hmm.
So it does come down to time, and time is money. Money is time. Got my money on my mind and my mind on my money or whatever. I'm so
Please don't do
late.
that again.
So yeah, I don't know. I lost track of what I was saying, but I will say one Christmas movie that I thought of while we were talking about this, that if you haven't watched, it's on Netflix. Recommend it. It's called Love Hard with Jimmy O Yang. Um, that is, I've been told by my girlfriend, our Christmas tradition. Apparently, we watched it once, and she watched it the next year without me, and thought that she watched it with me. So it's kind of apparently our film. So
Okay. All right. Love Hard. I'll have to look and see. I don't know
yeah.
if I've seen that one or not, but I'll look it up and see. I saw a version of that, but it wasn't a Christmas film, so I, just kidding.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
getting a little
I'm sorry. Let me quote you. Will you stop?
yeah. All right. Well, Chad, I wish you and yours a Merry Sentimus and a Merry Christmas, friends. Thank you for watching. Oh, and an update. I don't know if I gave this, I know I posted it, but the toy drive ended up with 74 action figures collected in 2024 and about $680. And 74, 71 toys actually went to Toys for Tots. We had collected a few toys earlier in the year for a friend who uh, was a wrestling fan who lost his house, and so I we ended up donating some toys to that as well. But um, I had a big, tall trash bag filled
Mhm.
to the brim with the figures, and uh, it was cool because last year Toys for Tots cut the date. They didn't have the date that they had originally said, so it was too late to give it to Toys for Tots. So I had given it to another organization here in Southern Illinois. But this year I went and dropped them off on a Tuesday after work, and the ladies that answered the door because it was in Carbondale and they keep everything locked up, and they were like, "Who's there?" And it was dark outside. And I'm like, "I'm here to donate some toys." And she opened the door and she goes, "Oh, the wrestling guy." And she's like, "What do you got?" And I handed her the bag, and she was like, and I actually had to carry it in because the bag was so full. So I am so appreciative to everyone. Chad, I know that you and your girlfriend sent some stuff this year, and again, Zach Whitecotton, who donated almost $500 from his
Mhm.
birthday. He ended up turning 40 this year, and instead of getting toys or getting gifts for him and his wife, they just said donate to this. So it was very cool. And of course, the Royal Rumble contest will be doing that again that raised some money as well. So 2025, we're doing it again, and it's going to be fun. And my wife made a suggestion to me too that, because I looked and tried to get the most value for the buck, and so
Mhm.
there's a lot of figures that went in there, 71 that went out this year. But she's like, have you ever thought about buying some of the bigger things that kids may not get, that if they already have the wrestlers, maybe they want a ring or a cage or something else. So I think next year I'm going to focus on doing some we'll focus on doing some of those kinds of purchases as well. So start looking. Ringside Collectibles, they have great
Mhm.
sales. So we'll start the new year off and doing things. And speaking of the new year, Chad, we need to talk off air about the Centis and a year in recap that we'll do next week. That will be the last episode of 2024.
Mhm.
Any closing thoughts on Christmas and this week that before we say goodbye?
Just hopefully everyone has a good Christmas, and uh, hopefully you stay off the naughty list so you don't have to watch Red One.
Oh, okay. Red One. It's a no, 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 not a ho, ho, ho from Chad Smart, I guess. I
Oh,
stole
is that
that
going to
from
be our
Jason.
new? Oh,
Yeah,
so
I
are
stole
we
that
going to
from
bring
Jason.
the no,
There you go.
or we're going to bring the ho?
There. Ho! So we're gonna stop here and go yell at clouds somewhere else. But friends, thank you for listening and/or watching to this week's episode. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. We will see you next time.